Second round begins tonight between the Panthers and the Leafs. What are the biggest storylines, key players to watch, and who will come out on top in the series? We'll discuss that and more next on this crossover between Locked On Panthers and Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, May 5th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers and on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers. You can follow the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe and press that like button down below. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And you can do that all on Game Time. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Panthers. And after a crazy finish to round one with the Jets winning in double overtime, we turn the page to round two, where the Panthers and the Leafs will kick it off tonight, 8 p.m. on ESPN, as the Panthers look to make their third straight Stanley Cup final. But in their way right now is the Toronto Maple Leafs on the other side, who are trying to avenge the second round series from 2 years ago, as the Panthers defeated them in 5 games. Will the Panthers come out victorious again, or will the Toronto Maple Leafs find a way to overcome the Panthers? Well, now let's actually get to our crossover between myself and one of the co-hosts of Locked On Leafs, David Morassutti.
Well, the first round is in the books, so it's time to get going to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And for a special edition of the Atlantic Division crossover, it is myself, David Morassutti, from the Locked On Leafs podcast, representing the Canadian team. And we got the reigning, defending Stanley Cup champions being represented by the Locked On Panthers host, Armando Velez. Welcome, buddy. It's been a while. It's been a year, actually, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the last time we had a show together was the Atlantic Division Contenders crossover with Ian, declaring of Boston Bruins, and Josh Berber, when we were discussing how we think things will finish.
Oh, those poor saps in Boston and Tampa, now just drowning in their sorrows while the Leafs and Panthers are enjoying the spoils of the second round. Isn't it lovely?
Yeah, it's funny because going into this, even in the playoffs, I was thinking, Paul Maurice even spoke about it, how you're going to run into one of Toronto, Tampa, or even both. But for the Panther side of things, you know, they were, how they guided through the rest of the regular season, they ended up getting both of them. As going into this series, we saw a lot of theater, especially because we're recording this at the end after Jets Blues went into double overtime due to the son of Dave Lowry, Adam Lowry, finishing off in overtime. And then Battle of Ontario, Battle of Florida, the first round was just outstanding from what we saw.
Yeah, outstanding. It's one of those things where, talking a little bit about that game, where you are just enjoying that game as a casual observer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like that was just great fun. And I think it sets the stage for the next one. I'm glad, first off, that the NHL did not book any other games that night, because there was a talk about potentially starting this series on the Sunday. I'm glad they didn't do that. You got all the focus on that game 7. What a game 7. What a way to tee up this series. And for both teams, similar positions, right? 2003, you have the Leafs, who at the time were celebrating a round 1 series win for the first time since 2004, going up against a Panthers team that had gone to the Cup final the year before. They had knocked off the Bruins. Sorry, I'm getting my ears confused already. They had knocked off the Bruins and the famous "We Want Florida" chants in Toronto. I'm sure you guys really do remember that one.
Yeah.
Mike and I remember that one too. We weren't too keen on that from Leafs fans at the time. So we'll rehash a little bit of history here. The Leafs were the home team in this one. They were the favorites going into the series. They found themselves down 3-0, trying to engineer a comeback. The Panthers are like, nope, this is going to end in 5. It did end in 5. They went on to not only win the series, as I said, they did go to the cup final, 1 of 2. They didn't get it that time, but they did get it the year after. So, Armando, what has been kind of the storyline for the Panthers kind of going into this year? Because now not many teams look poised to go for a three-peat chance of going to the cup final and even defending back-to-back years. How has this all been for the Panthers lately?
Yeah, let's not forget that the last time that the Panthers and the Leafs faced off against each other, it was 2 days after the greatest upset in Stanley Cup playoff history, where Carter Verhaeghe scored that game winner against the Boston Bruins. And then all throughout that run, they went on a 10-game road winning streak for them, right? They lost game 1 in Boston and then didn't lose another road game until game 1 of the Stanley Cup final against Vegas. And just 2 days later, recovering, Panthers were packing for multiple days and then just rode that wave all the way from there on. And for the Panthers here, just the biggest storyline for them is a chance to be in elite company with the likes of a Pittsburgh Penguins and a Tampa Bay Lightning. Only 2 teams in this millennium have repeated as Stanley Cup champions, and the Panthers have just continued on from opening night on to try to build towards this time. And obviously for them, they were able to get some guys into the mix in the offseason, like a Nate Schmidt, who got 3 goals in 2 games in Tampa Bay for them, and even some additions for them, and Brad Marchand, who they were able to use Matthew Tkachuk's LTIR money in order to bring him in. Didn't have to pay as much for them to bring him in, and then he's a big contributor on that third line in round 1 for the Panthers here. They were able to also use that space to get a backup goaltender, a penalty killer in Nico Sturm, and then Seth Jones, who's not only he's with the Panthers this year, but for multiple years to come until 2030, which is in line where a lot of the contracts expire for the Panthers. Their core, they've identified it. And right now for the Panthers, as the majority of their core is in their late 20s, it's a time for them to continue to try to take advantage of the window that they're currently in.
Yeah, I saw when the Leafs played the Panthers a couple years ago, I said, this is probably not the last time we're going to see these 2 teams in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Kind of thought it was going to be a rematch last year, but the Leafs ran into the Bruins and their playoff demons. They robbed us of that opportunity, and we know what Florida did to Boston in that round 2. Thank you very much for that one. I did enjoy that series. Maybe not so much the rest after that, but we enjoyed seeing the Bruins fail in round 2, that's for sure. But when you look at this time around, what do you think is kind of the bigger storyline for the Panthers? Is it the chance to go for that join that rare company and try to make the cup final once again, or is there something else there in how they were going about it this year?
I mean, it's just I guess it's hard to argue which one is the bigger storyline, but I mean, the amount of doubts that the Panthers had towards the end of the regular season with how much they were resting guys, and then all the claims that they were tanking to play the Leafs in round 1, and it ended up, when the last regular season game for the Panthers and the Leafs happened, and they won that game at home for them, where it was Bobrovsky versus Joseph Woll there. All that conversation ended about them trying to tank for round 1, that they were still trying to play their game to their identity as well, even with guys in the lineup for them who were part of their AHL squad. So that was another thing of just trying to get things right and healthy at the right time. And the Panthers have certainly hit that. And I mean, the injuries for the Tampa Bay Lightning, I mean, you saw the laundry list of all the things they were going to. You could go to Locked On Lightning for all the details for that. But then just timing was just right for them. And then getting Matthew Tkachuk back in game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, which he got the 3 goals in the first 3 games for the Panthers for him. And I mean, it's just been clicking ever since. And the first round for the Panthers, it's been a scoring by committee approach. So it wasn't just the Sam Reinhart's taking over, the Matthew Kachucks, the Carver Hagies, even though they got on the scoreboard as well. But I mean, it was just a round one for the Panthers. That it was just, the thing is, you look at the box score for the Panthers and the Lightning here, you see 4-1, but four of the 5 games were the Panthers gutting out a win for them, and it was a pretty close matchup for with the exception of game 1. So they found a way each time, especially in game 4 where they had to kill off a 5-minute major and then 2 goals in the third period for them to find a way to win. So I mean, they've just continued to just press on and just find ways, even though it's looked doubtful for them.
Yeah, I don't think the Tampa Bay Lightning want to keep seeing the Panthers in the playoffs. Hasn't always been a recipe for success for them. Yeah, I think when you look at the Leafs right now, obviously finishing first in the Atlantic Division was kind of seen as like a big step for the team. They hadn't done that. Haven't won a division title in a regular NHL season. No, not the whole Canadian North Division, in a very long time. And in a way, this team had to kind of overcome some of its own, I would guess, doubts that people had, whether they could finish off the Senators after taking the 3-0 series lead. Had a chance to do it in 5, didn't. Were they going to kind of blow things? They didn't. And now it sort of seems like everybody's got this idea that Panthers, again, are a team that many are kind of cringing to see the Leafs go up against, considering how the first time these two teams went up against each other. And so we'll kind of dive more into the matchups, some key players to watch, and obviously we'll also do our predictions at the end here. But on the other side, we are going to go and we're going to give us a good opportunity to see which players we think are going to have a big impact in this series. I think there's going to be no shortage of players on either side that we can look to. So we'll do that next here on a special edition of the Locked On Leafs and Locked On Panthers podcast. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out and online shopping and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So just stop managing your money and start building wealth. I like to use Monarch because it allows me to see where I'm spending my money, how much is going towards food delivery, how much is it going towards, Leafs merch. Those are just things that can, personal touches you can do in the Monarch Money app. Also, you can manage money with your partner. It's smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com/code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and if you've never been to a live NHL playoff game, it's unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it's next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually drop as puck drop gets closer, and with last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. Look, Leafs, one of the hottest tickets in town. It's hard to get tickets. It's even hella expensive to go to a Leafs playoff game. So take advantage of the fact that you can get those last minute deals for somebody that maybe is unable to go to the game. Or if you want to take a little trip down to Florida, enjoying the sunshine and beach, you can also use Game Time to get your tickets down there as well. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We return here to a special edition of the Locked On Leafs and Locked On Panthers podcast. David Morassutti here with my good buddy Armando Velez. And thank you guys for making this special crossover one of your first listens. I know that, Armando, you've been busy putting out all the content. You've been going to a lot of these games. The atmosphere must be nuts in that arena. I don't know how many Leafs fans are making the trip down. There's traveling between Canada and the U.S. has been a little tricky lately.
Yeah,
but I think with the playoffs, some people might be making an exception.
Yeah, it's funny because now with the Panthers winning and being consistent, I mean it's tilted not as much as away fans as much as other years. So it's great to see that South Florida is really truly embracing this team and trying to and also learning about the game as well. So that's a beautiful thing on just the growth continuously that's going on here in South Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I've even seen a lot of Panthers fans at Leafs games. When I've been to a couple, and it's starting to grow. You're starting to see a lot of, especially like Barkov jerseys and things like that. I'm sure there's going to be a few Matthew Tkachuk jerseys there for Game 1. Is that one of the players that we should obviously be keeping an eye on? Because, man, those Tkachuk brothers, they love playing against the Leafs.
Yeah, he's one of my 4 that I have listed. I mean, it's crazy. The Leafs defeat one Tkachuk brother, and guess what? You got to go against another Tkachuk brother who already has a Stanley Cup championship to his name for him. So Matthew Tkachuk is also why I have him as one of my as my X factors for this series is because, I mean, although he had 3 goals in the previous series, like I mentioned in the first segment, I mean, the time on ice for him hasn't been the highest. I mean, yeah, he's coming back from an injury that he suffered at the Four Nations for him. But, I mean, if you want a long, extended playoff run, you gotta be able to match with the lines of the top 6 for the Toronto Maple Leafs there. And, I mean, but despite not a lot of time on ice for him, he is one of 3 players who was not on the ice for a goal against at 5-on-5. It's him, Seth Jones, and Eetu Luostarinen are one of the 3 guys to not give up, not be on the ice at 5-on-5 for a goal against. Second one, Sergei Bobrovsky. This is a kind of series where it's student versus teacher, master versus apprentice. Talking about Anthony Stolarz, who was his backup last year. And this was the series 2 years ago where Sergei Bobrovsky was starting to take over and really was trying, for him, that was really the first time where I was starting to say Hall of Fame case for Sergei Bobrovsky, carrying the Panthers all the way to the Stanley Cup final, where there was more shots against at that time. The Corsi was in the Leafs favor in that series 2 years ago for him. But it's not going to be an easy feat for what the core 4 brings for the Toronto Maple Leafs for them. And then another one, Sam Reinhart, part of the penalty kill for the Panthers for the Leafs. I mean, they're over 30% on the power play. Sam Reinhart is going to be a big factor for the Panthers with his two-way game and just how smart he is. And then just how they're going to have him and Matthew Tkachuk needing to be the net front presence to overwhelm Anthony Stolarz and those second and third chance opportunities for him. And I mean, credit to the Leafs for what they did in round 1. Although the Corsi wasn't in their favor, they block a lot of shots. My goodness. Chris Tanev, Brandon Carlo are 2 guys who could definitely get in front, and then also guys who could be bruisers along the board. And then my 4th one, Dmitry Kulikov. He's going to be playing. He played a role in the top 4 for a good amount of the season. He's going to be only playing there for 1 game due to the suspension of Aaron Ekblad. He's going to be coming back for game 2. So a big he's going to have to set the tone for the Panthers blue line. He's going to be paired with Nico Mikkola for game 1, and it's going to be interesting to see if they are how Craig Berube is going to line match against that pair for the Florida Panthers against the Florida Panthers here, trying to see what he can get away with. I know that they're probably going to get the Matthews line away from Barkov and Gustav Forsling, so I'm interested to see. So Kulikov is the franchise leader in hits for the Panthers, so I'm going to be interested to see how he manages whenever he does get on the ice, even when he does go back to that third pair, which we assume is going to be Nate Schmidt and Uvis Belinskis is going to be the healthy scratch.
Yeah, I mean, matchups are going to be key in this series, and that's why one of the players to watch, and he was one of their big additions from the offseason, that's Chris Tanev.
Mm-hmm.
His veteran presence, the Panthers are going to want to play a heavy game, and he thrives playing in that heavy style of play. Now, the Panthers the Senators did give Tanev a run for his money in that series because they were very physical, and it does wear down on players. So I'm sure that's going to be something the Panthers are going to want to do against Chris Tanev this time around. But that veteran presence, like that's a guy in key moments you're going to want on the ice, and he's really helped the penalty kill too. So you're going to be seeing a lot of Chris Tanev, I think, him and Jake McCabe in the series. Obviously, you brought him up, Austin Matthews. There was a little bit of criticism after Game 5 that he was very quiet, didn't have his best in Game 5 against Ottawa. What does he do? He scores a goal, big goal in Game 6. He's a player that I think has taken more of a vocal leadership role, has really tried to will this team together. And so I think we'll see how the captain responds to some of the antics, because you got between Kachuk, Marchand, Bennett, enough guys are going to try to get under Matthew's skin in the series. So that'll be, obviously the captain will be a player to watch. And you brought him up, Anthony Stolarz, the student, the apprentice, whatever you want to call him. Well, he's looking to show maybe he's also ready to become a master, because first round, we hadn't seen what Anthony Stolarz could do in the playoffs, and he looked pretty good in round 1. There are maybe a couple of goals here and there, but 2.21 goals against average in that series. Save percentage, it's funny, him and Bobrovsky, identical save percentage and goals against average. It's almost like twinsies between these two. It's pretty funny. But he's been a rock since the Leafs brought him in. And yes, you want to see how he does against, again, the competition only gets tougher. Is he going to be able to elevate his game? That's going to be something to watch, because we know Bobrovsky's going to bring his A game. So I'm curious to see, will Anthony Stolarz be able to bring what he did in round 1 into round 2, and also have to take it to another level? That's going to be something to watch in that one. And then a final player for me, Mitch Marner. He's taken his fair share of criticism for the way he's played in the playoffs, and it's fair. This is a player that wants to break the bank and get a big contract, so he's got a lot to play for. He did have 8 points in 6 games in round 1, but only 1 goal. He's going to want to have to get on the score sheet a little bit more in this series. So one thing that might be going his way, he is also a new father. First baby born just before the series. Sometimes that inspires players a little bit more. So we'll see if Mitch Marner gets a little bit of the baby, what do they call it? The baby bump?
Yeah.
New dad bump. It happened in Toronto before when Fred VanVleet in the 2019 NBA Finals against Golden State. That did happen. So maybe a little bit of that luck for Mitch Marner. So yeah, there are so many more players that we could talk about in this series, but maybe some of those players will get on the next side here as we go through the kind of the X factors. We'll give our predictions and any notable stats we may be looking to. I got a couple here that don't necessarily favor the Leafs too much, and maybe something that the Leafs are going to have to work on and figure out once they go up against the Panthers. We'll discuss that next here on a special edition of the Locked On Leafs and Locked On Panthers podcast. It's your team every day. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives you business flexibility by connecting with top freelancers, talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Also, posting a job is free and simple, and within a day with multiple quality candidates to choose from. So it's very fast and it's easy to hire. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Want to welcome you back here as we continue this special edition of the Locked On Leafs and Locked On Panthers crossover for the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. Round two, it's not something the Leafs have seen a lot. The Panthers have over the last few years. So clearly there's going to be a bit of experience will be obviously a big factor here between these two teams. But when we look at this series and kind of looking at how both sides match up against each other, is there any like stats or any X factors you're looking at here and saying this is what the Panthers are going to need to do if they want to pull off another series victory over Toronto?
For one thing that is really favored in the Panthers' direction is for the Leafs. Their shots for they finished 12 out of 16 in the first round for them, while the Panthers were they finished 10th, but their shots against for the Panthers was best in round one. So the Panthers' ability to suppress shots has been such a big key for them, and just their ability to get through the Tampa Bay Lightning as well. And like I mentioned earlier, the Leafs were a 44% Corsi for. And even during the regular season for the Panthers led in Corsi for, shots for, expected matchups for them. And also for, although this isn't a favorable stat for the Panthers here, 16 for 18 with how the Panthers have done it in the previous series, they're going to have to find a way against that 5-forward power play that the Toronto Maple Leafs like to use. Mitch Marner is the main point guy for the Leafs, and also the minutes distribution for power play 1 versus power play 2 is significant for them. So it's going to be interesting to see how much they pressure the puck at the blue line to see if they're going to go and take a chance for a shorthanded opportunity. They usually like to put Nico Sturm and Eetu Luostarinen first, and then put Barkov and Reinhart second. And with tired bodies and then getting the active sticks, I'm interested to see how they're going to defend if Sam Reinhart and Alexander Barkov especially take their chances. And then Lundell and Marchand are going to be also those forwards after that for them. And also, I'm very interested to see how the third line for the Leafs matches up against the Panthers here. Max Domi is an experienced guy, but doesn't have double-digit goals for him this season. So I'm wondering how the Leafs match up the third line against the Panthers. It's funny because I was talking about in the previous series, I like the Panthers blue line way more than the Tampa Bay blue line, but I still like their blue line over Toronto's, but it's not by much. And in previous series, I was saying, okay, I like Tampa Bay's goalie better than Florida's goalie, but it's the opposite here. It's flipped, thinking that I give the edge to Bobrovsky there over Anthony Stolar. So it's a lot of differences for what I think advantages are, but then there's some things that are similar. I do think that the top 6 for the Panthers and the Leafs are also for them a little bit of a push here as well. I mean, you look at Max Pacioretty getting that game-winning goal against Ottawa in Game 6, coming in clutch. So what an addition that he has been for the Toronto Maple Leafs here.
Yeah, we're going to ignore any talk about potentially scratching Max Pacioretty from the lineup after he goes and he gets the game winner there. I mean, the guy has proven to be clutch in those series, and they're going to need a little bit of that against Florida. When I look at a few things, I look back to that. Unfortunately, I look back on that series against the Panthers, and what exactly did the Leafs struggle with? Well, a big one here, Sergei Bobrovsky. Sometimes we talk about a team getting goalied and they say, that's an excuse. That's an excuse. No, Sergei Bobrovsky absolutely goalied the Leafs in that last series. He had a 1.89 goals against average, a 943 save percentage in those 5 games.
Nuts.
That is unheard of. That is nuts. So if you're the Leafs, you got to find a way to get in Bob's grill, mess with his brain a little bit here, figure out a way to get him off his game, because if you're not going to be able to do that, that was something that the Panthers definitely took advantage of, and it allowed them to really own the series in a lot of ways. Maybe play a little more risky, knowing that they had a goaltender that was going to back them up a bit. And I looked at also special teams. The Leafs in the playoffs, special teams hasn't always been, great for them. This time around, it's been better, right? They are top 4 in penalty kill at 80%, which is good for the Leafs. It's been a lot worse in the past. Actually, funny enough, in that series against Florida, Their penalty kill was 66.7%. Pretty far cry for what it is right now. So that's better. And their power play is at 35.3%, which is third in the third amongst teams in the playoffs, second among active teams that still remain, with Edmonton number one. LA, they're 40%. And that was not enough for them against Edmonton. So
another 5-forward power play. Another team that runs that.
Exactly. So the 5-4 power play has been the big change release here, but they got their work cut out for them because Florida 88.9%. Let's give it 89% on the PK, second best. Only the Hurricanes, who are somehow perfect in the penalty kill so far in the playoffs. So that's going to be something that the Leafs are going to have to figure out here. Can they score with the man advantage? It didn't work out for them last time they played the Panthers. 2 goals on 11 opportunities, 18.2%. You are not going to win a series when your power play is not that good. It got off to a hot start against the Senators. It cooled a bit. They did get that big goal from Austin Matthews on the power play in Game 6. They're going to have to find a way to get to. And the thing is, the Panthers don't take a lot of penalties. They're usually pretty disciplined, I would say, although he did get just a little bit chippy against Tampa.
Yeah.
But I think when you hear Paul Maurice talk about discipline, there's a reason why he's bringing it up, because yes, the Leafs power play is good, but the Panthers have been a bit of a kryptonite against this Leafs power play.
Yeah, no doubt. And for them, the two guys that they've mostly taken away, especially when it comes to offense, I mean, it's been Austin Matthews and John Tavares for them, at least especially in their most recent series. It's been the William Nylander show actually for them. He's the one who's been showing up for the Leafs against them. So it's just if Austin Matthews is still contained like they did the previous time, it gives the Panthers a good chance to win. I mean, he's the best player on their team, their best goal scorer, almost had 70 just the last year. So also that's another key for the Panthers. How can they take away Austin Matthews' time and space and just his ability to shoot from everywhere in the offensive zone? So that's another thing that's going to be very important for the Panthers on just stopping a player like him who, honestly, I will say this, David, if he is healthy, he has the ability to challenge Alexander Ovechkin's goal record for sure. I believe that.
Yeah, I do think so. And look, you could tell that he's not totally 100%, but he's finding a way to be a factor. If it's not offensively, it's going to be on the defensive end of things. I think that's going to be kind of a key thing for the Leafs, is kind of use your stifling defense that you showed, especially early in the series against Ottawa. Really make it tough for the Panthers in those high danger areas. Really try to limit them and hopefully turn some of that defense into offense. The Leafs blue liners stepped up in the last series. They actually got goals from their blue line, which hadn't happened in the regular season. Oliver Ekman-Larsson was one. Simon Benoit, the new god of 6 defensemen in the playoffs, and Morgan Rielly also getting on the board. So it'd be nice to see that continue. But we know the Panthers have guys that can also provide from the blue line. Any other X factors you may want to throw in there? I think we talked about Matthew Tkachuk. I'm not looking forward to what he has in store.
No, that I basically touched most of the X factors. I'm just going to be mostly focusing on that bottom 6 for the Panthers, on just how they match up for them. So that's the main thing.
I will say the Leafs, their fourth line had been really good against Ottawa. Their third line, it's been a bit of a mishmash. They had, at one point, Max Domi was their third line center. Then it was Pontus Holmberg. So they've been kind of moving things. That third line's been kind of the unsettled question mark, I think, going into the series. So they're going to have to find a way for that third line to contribute. Maybe with Max Pacioretty there, he can help stabilize things, offer that veteran presence. All right, prediction time. You are the guest. And you are the defending champion. So are we going to see the Florida Panthers reach another conference final? What is your prediction?
All right, I'm going to first start off with where the betting favorites are, which direction they are going. Courtesy of our friends at FanDuel, they have the Panthers at -146 to win the series against the Toronto Maple Leafs for them. But I just think that with the Panthers' experience, what they brought in at the trade deadline, the fact that they're healthy at the right time, the fact that they've been able to figure out the Leafs throughout their time of playing against one another, the profile of Sergei Bobrovsky, I just do think that the Panthers do have a bigger advantage here for them. So I'm going to say that the Florida Panthers will win this series in 6 games. And I'm going to put on a quote that Brad Marchand said back in game 4. The team has just the belief in the program, the system all over. And I just think that the Panthers are just gonna find a way. And like I mentioned in 2023, they went 10 straight games of winning on the road. I think that for the Panthers, they're going to go into a road environment like Toronto, and I think that the lights won't be too bright for them as they've been here before. So Panthers in 6.
Yeah, so I hope he didn't spell belief with BELEAF, because we know Brad Marchand is very much about throwing those digs at the Leafs. Yeah, the Leafs plus 105 on the money line if you want to bet on them and maybe earn a buck or two. But if I actually think that it's the Leafs' road success in the playoffs is where they're going to have to rely on if they're going to beat the Panthers. I think the only way they beat the Panthers is if they avoid a game 7. I think 6. They did it in 6 against Tampa. They did it in 6 against Ottawa. And I think if the Leafs are going to win this series, it's got to be in 6 games. So I'm going to go Leafs in 6. So if there's a game 6, both of us are going to be going mano a mano to see which team is going to prove us right. And hopefully it's another good competitive series, and we let the play on the ice. Hopefully there's no shenanigans like the one against the Lightning there where things got quite chippy. You won't expect that out of the Leafs too much, but I do expect some feistiness. The Leafs are not going to back down from a challenge, but we know the Panthers, they got some guys that are willing to mix things up, that's for sure. Armando, I look forward to seeing your work over down in Florida there. You've been doing a great job covering the team. Make sure you guys are following Armando if you want to see more about what the Panthers are up to as they get set to come up to Toronto for game 1. And that happens Monday night. We'll see how game 1 happens here. Thank you for stopping by. Make sure you guys go and you support both the Locked On Leafs and Locked On Panthers podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure you also subscribe to us both on YouTube, Locked On Leafs and Locked On Panthers. And we'll be back with you guys. We'll be, obviously, Mike and myself will be covering game 1 and the rest of the series. You make sure you go and follow Armando there. But until then, keep locked right here on Locked On Leafs and Locked On Panthers.